Welcome back, everybody. Kelly, I saw you saying keep your kidney hydrated. Me too. I need more bio breaks these days. In the past 12 years since having one kidney than I used to. So I see how that is. So welcome back, everybody. We're pleased to introduce our final speaker of the Café, Dr. Curtis Walker. He's a Maori doctor and specialist in nephrology and general medicine. He has recently finished 5 years as the chair of the New Zealand Medical Council and 7 years on the board of Māori Doctors Association. He currently serves on the board of New Zealand's national health provider, Te Whatu Ora Health New Zealand, and practices as a nephrologist in Palmerston North Hospital. He's committed to cultural safety and health equity for Māori, Pacific, and other underserved peoples in Aotearoa, particularly in the area of nephrology and kidney transplantation. Thank you, Dr. Walker, for joining us today, and I'll pass it over to you now.
O tēnei te mihi ki a koutou e ngā tangata whenua o te ao mai I te ao mai I ngā hau e whā. Tēnā koutou, urunoa ki a tātou, tēnā koutou katoa, ki ngā tuakana me ngā teina, ngā mihi nunui ki a koutou katoa. Welcome from Aotearoa, New Zealand to Indigenous peoples around the world, both our elder and sibling Indigenous peoples, Janet, Kelly, koutou māmai, te tangata moimoi, te whenua moimoia, the Dreaming Land, kia ora again to you. To Terry, the kuia who's supporting the hui, kia ora to you, be well. As you go helping patients hitchhike to their chemotherapy, as well as supporting out this work here. So greetings to you, Terry. To you, Caroline, for the work in drawing this rōpū together. To you, Craig, for drawing this session together and making sure we could all get here on time, which is no mean feat around the world with the time zones. I am aware that I'm the last speaker, I think, and I'm keeping you all from your warm beds in minus 100-degree Canada. So, I'll try and keep us rolling and keep the energy going as we go along. But most importantly, it's not about us, of course, but to all of our Indigenous and non-Indigenous health workers who are out there, and also the patients, families and communities that we serve. Ki ngā tangata kua mate, me ngā whānau pani, rātou ki a rātou, tātou ki a tātou. I acknowledge the passing of our people as well. And it's remarkable how similar our sort of traditions and acknowledgements are around the world and what we find important in terms of sharing each other's stories. So beautiful hui and gathering. Thank you. I think somebody said Jackie, the only Indigenous nephrologist in Australia. I'm the only Indigenous nephrologist in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and I'm maybe like Jackie, I hope maybe meeting our health minister this afternoon to talk about cancer action. I'm also on call, so if I do get a phone call, I'm probably going to have to take it. The last one I had just before was somebody talking about headaches and something, and I said, are you sure you want me? And they said, yeah, the neurologist. And I said, no, I'm the nephrologist. So if we find it difficult in our systems to communicate effectively, is it any wonder that whānau can't navigate and families can't navigate our complex health system in silos? To the two Kellys who are fighting for the kidneys, your situation over there, like many places, is sobering, but the actions you're taking are humbling and inspiring, I have to say, to see your work in the communities and on country. And oftentimes our two countries are competitive on the sports field. Sometimes we beat you, sometimes you beat us. But I know in this endeavor, it's all about supporting and learning from each other, because we're on the same team at the end of the day when it comes to health, right? So, I acknowledge your awesome work over there. A little bit jealous about it too, but, we'll do what we can over here as well. Okay, now I've got to work out how to do screen share. So I'm going to do screen share. There it is there. And hopefully this will work if I do that. Nope. How's that? Kate Pie? All good? Yeah, getting thumbs up. All right. So treatment, reconciliation and organ donation. Bit of a broad topic. I've got 37 more slides since I've clicked past that first one. So I'm going to Crack on. Right, ko wai aho. What am I, Portai? Who am I? What hats do I wear? Well, I think, Craig, thank you for the introduction there. Practicing nephrologist on the board of Te Whatu Ora, or Health New Zealand, which is our national health provider. I don't know what the Canadian or Aussie equivalent would be, but because it's kind of state-based, but on the board of the, or was on the board of the Māori medical practitioners for a number of years, and my iwi tribe are from the east coast of the North Island. Also, the privilege of serving on the board of Aotearoa Hospice. Man, just really dealt with a patient last week who sort of said, is this place Māori or Indigenous? And it previously hasn't been, but we're trying to make these places more open and accommodating and comfortable for our communities who need the services. So, man, it was just touching to hear that comment spontaneously. I said, no, it isn't, but, you know, we're trying. And also, as Craig said, privilege of still being on the Medical Council, but not its chair anymore. Happy to hand that over actually to an Indigenous wahine. An Indigenous surgeon who's taken on at the chair of our Medical Council now, which is fantastic. Okay, brief outline. I want to just talk about some of the challenges and experiences that we have here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and also, you know, what are some of the solutions at a high policy level, and also through workforces and service provision. And again, I just acknowledge the awesome work that the Kellys, I won't say that, I won't keep saying that, but that's going on in other places. Kia ora. So that's a taiaha anyway, which is, so it's one of our traditional spears and weapons, you know, which I don't want to say it's all we use to solve problems these days, words, but that's why I'm calling that a weddle or a challenge, and the taiaha, or, you know, a tool to help us overcome the challenges. Right. Okay. A little bit of background here, and again, I know a number of you who I've spoken to will have seen a number of these slides, so apologies for the repetition there, but I'm trying to tell the complete package. Health equity is key. Cultural safety is a massive part to help achieve. That's necessary, but on its own isn't sufficient. Of course, as Indigenous people, we have aspirations outside of health and matters of Indigenous health outside of health equity and all the other things we want to do. So, you know, we're talking about bits and pieces of these today, but it's not all of our Indigenous world, and nor should it be. In Aotearoa, New Zealand, first people arrived here about 950 AD on Waka, probably from somewhere around the Cook Island, Society Islands, Tahitian, and that is our Hawaii, or where our ancestors came from and where we believe they returned to. And so came on the canoes, and there, 1930, they dug up one of the anchor stones from our migratory canoes, you know, as well, maybe not quite concrete evidence, but, you know, hard evidence of our ancestral traditions. So, kia ora. Some other people arrived on boats a few hundred years later, bringing with them new religions, new ways of doing things, new diseases, new opportunities. In our country, thinking was relatively enlightened in 1840, and they said, well, let's have a treaty rather than, you know, go and kind of exterminate the natives. And so we've got a treaty here which governs the interactions between the Indigenous people and the tauiwi or settler people. And over the years, this has come to be reflected in a number of principles that we try and apply through legislation and through practice. And you'll see those principles there, all good stuff. Now, that is currently under challenge or review by our new government. We've got a new, sometimes governments are conservative, sometimes they're progressive, and sometimes they're regressive. So we have some of these long-held important principles under challenge at the moment in our country. As around the world, all of you will know that these are the significant challenges when you lose your land, your economic base, and face other barriers and problems. You are going to run into health inequities. Now, this is common around the world for colonized people. So, I mean, we know this story. I won't spend too much time on it. I used to put, in fact, I still should put biological and genetic vulnerabilities in smaller font down the bottom, because we know that relatively they don't add up to nearly as much as the top, as the other factors. So in the kidney world, this is data from our ANZ data, Australia, New Zealand data registry. See, we do cooperate on stuff, which, like our Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander cousins across the ditch, massively increased rates of end-stage kidney disease, 7.5 times, 8 times for Māori, and around 10, 11 times for our Pacifica peoples, mostly because of type 2 diabetes. I acknowledge all ports and koutou mā, other, all the other challenges that we face too, such that though Māori make up about a third of new dialysis patients, which is around double of the population proportion that we are. So transplant, we all know transplant, best treatment if you do get to that stage. Our transplant rates, similar to in Australia, have been woefully low for our Indigenous peoples over the years. There is some slight improvement here, and I'll show you the next slide too, and preemptive as well. But Māori transplant rates are down here compared to hemodialysis. And on the other side here, I don't know if this, probably the mouse is not showing up, but the situation is reversed for non-Māori, non-Pacific. Pretty similar situation for our Pacific people on the left as well, which is why I've put them in brackets as well. So that's a massive equity gap. And like Kelly said, around only, or it might have been you, Janet, only around, a quarter of the number of transplants that we should be getting on an equitable basis. Yep, koina te wero, that's the challenge. And again, preemptive transplants here. About 2% of Māori get a preemptive transplant with end-stage kidney disease, maybe just pushing 12% for non-Māori, non-Pacific. And the reason I put that up there is because you need so many things to go right, so many things to be in your favour, a prompt responsive system if you're going to access a preemptive kidney transplant. And so, for me, a lot of things have to be happening in this space to address that equity gap, and it's probably a good place as any to start. Okay. Again, we know most of what we do in healthcare is, subservient to the other drivers of health, and it's not that, and we should advocate for all of those other drivers, the other 80% as well, while we work our butts off on the 20% that is more immediately in our day-to-day job to deal with. Now, this is Prof. Rachel Walker. I don't know many of you, so some of you will know Rachel Walker. Miriam, I know you work very closely with Rachel Walker. No relative of mine, I hasten to add. Anyway, New Zealand's not that small. This was, and I apologise for the writing, but Rachel had a sort of a workshop session with some healthcare workers, and I think renal as well, in her kitchen or at her place in Hawke's Bay, and they were sort of listing the reasons why Māori struggle within our health system. You will be able to read that and go, yep, absolutely, understand. Very common dialogue, common challenges, common problems around the world. But increasingly, this is the good news, but increasingly, our health workers, our health workforce are aware of these, and we're actually looking at ourselves and the systems we design and run and the care we provide rather than blaming patients. And so the first part about any, 12-step program is acknowledging you're the problem, or, a major part of the problem. So this is from Rachel's. Now, she did do that a little bit more formally in a paper as well, and sort of say, well, what are some of the challenges around kidney donation, around the cultural challenges of interfacing with the health systems we run, and then you can start to make things better. Okay. But I will move on, but I always acknowledge Rachel and Miriam and the other people who are working hard in the space in our country too. Right. Transplantation barriers, again, pretty high level, pretty general. Again, you will be familiar with those. They are the same in other parts. I'm sorry I couldn't attend the earlier part of the day here. I was giving a talk to the hospice on Māori involvement in palliative care. So sorry I couldn't attend the earlier part, but I'm presuming that these challenges are also experienced in Canada as well. Okay, so a couple of little things that we're trying to sort of do. Well, let's get some information. Why do people struggle to get on the list, and how do people fall off the list? This is a big combined database research project which is up and running in Australia and is trying to get more funding and support in New Zealand so that we can assess the factors and find out where the biases are as to why people get on and off. It's just one piece of the puzzle, but certainly more information as to understanding will be helpful. And it speaks a little bit to the work that Stephen McDonald and has been done over in Australia, Janet, as to what's going on in that other space, as to why people are struggling to get on and falling off and then struggling to get back on, and all the rest of it. Critical equity contributors or inequity contributors there. Okay. This is slightly older work, but we've got ourselves to look at. While we treat everybody the same, there's all sorts of problems with Māori. That's why we can't give Indigenous kidney transplants. All of these challenges. Yeah. And look, some of that, I don't deny that diabetes is a overly prevalent and a bugger of a thing for too many of our Indigenous people, and it does make it harder to get kidney transplants. No two ways about it. But what are we going to do about that downstream and upstream? Okay. Yeah, the old treat patients, everyone the same way, everyone's got equal access. Well, we know they don't. Okay, so anyway, some of these myths, I think we are more willing, well, not, we are collectively more aware of, and that's not just Indigenous who are aware of these and tackling these now. So that's got to be optimistic. Got to be optimistic as a kidney, working in kidney field, and optimistic as an Indigenous person, because otherwise, and again, this is one of our really respected elders, politicians, or former politician now, to make sure that we're not, what was the old belief systems in the old days around transplant does not apply for many of our people today, and they should not be denied the opportunity of a transplant because of that, by the system or by practitioners. Okay, just putting that out there. So another person that some of you will know, Professor Paparangi Reid, one of my senior mentor people, has commented that the Indigenous Māori perspective, well, there is no one, and no one can claim to speak for one. So I humbly submit that here too today. But of course, our experiences in our communities and our individual families are many. They're diverse, multiple, flexible, and changeable. So, of course, assumptions in any of this is dangerous. Okay, so, but do Māori in this country want to donate, keen to donate? Is there a myth that, no, they don't keen to donate, so we don't ask? Well, around 80% of Māori transplant patients have had offers from friends or whānau. Slightly lower perhaps than 89% in Pākehā or New Zealand European, but certainly, workable with, not bad. Let's put that myth to bed. And the workup rate, though, is, it's relatively lower. So how do you go about addressing some of this? Well, in New Zealand since 1975, we've had the Waitangi Tribunal looking at historical claims by our Indigenous people against the settler government, or against the government. And that's trying to bring into place large-scale macro settlements, and that is being currently challenged, as I say, or it's facing new challenges from our current government. We'll ride that storm out because we have to. Not going anywhere as Indigenous people. So as Merrin, you say, cometh the hour, cometh the people. State-Owned Enterprises Act, that wrote some of the treaty principles that I've mentioned into our legislation, and said that actually we've got to start, being in partnership, offering protection and participation of Indigenous people, such that the Māori economy in New Zealand, and when I did the slide just a few years ago, was about 40 billion. It's now, I just looked latest figures, around $70 billion a year, Māori company, Māori businesses, etc. So this is what you get when your Indigenous people start to gain some health and opportunity. It's not a cost or a drain. Māori language and knowledge revival. Again, I tell you, Kelly, every time I go over to Australia and I'm hearing our Indigenous brothers and sisters, regather and reclaim their language, and God knows it's hard, and it's really hard in Australia because you have, how many dialects? Whereas we can sort of generally understand each other here. I can't hear you because you've got your dialect on mute. Maybe someone's pushed the mute button, anyway. Lots, 252, I think. Anyway, lots. So, those kind of revivals are really important. And of course, we're coming and we're growing as part of the population. All good. Okay, so recently, a couple of years ago, we had the establishment, we were drawing all of our separate disparate health boards, which are offering postcode care, different care in different places, into one organisation called Te Whatu Ora Health New Zealand. Alongside that was a Māori health authority, which has had commissioning powers, and I say, well, still has technically, has commissioning powers to purchase health services for Indigenous people, including renal, you know, and there's nothing right. Te Whatu wouldn't say, right, we're going to set up really dedicated Māori renal units and a Māori transplant service and all the rest of it, right? Dream big. No. So that was all good. There's an opportunity there. Unfortunately, the new government's come in and they, instead of opportunity, they found that to be a bureaucratic response. Probably haven't got time to go into the political debates and ins and out of it, but that was the end of that autonomous opportunity. And this is actually, these are headlines from today, or certainly the one on the left is a headline from today about the disestablishment of our Māori Health Authority. And on the right, there's the Waitangi Tribunal, which, as I say, is our like a Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa, and other countries will have it too. I say, looking at Canada. Yeah. So, and that's basically been run roughshod over in the unseemly and hasty rush to disestablish the health authority. So, you know, a respectful conversation is not going to be able to be had. Right. So those are some of the challenges, right? So we set aside the politicians, right? And we just got to get on and do what we have to do as health professionals. So Medical Council, we have said you must be a culturally safe practitioner. Nursing Council, nursing colleagues led this work, and it's, you know, it's something that we all expect our health providers and practitioners to be. I put the APRA one up there too, because of the same situation in Australia, as Kelly has said, and Janet has said, we are expecting our practitioners who are delivering care to be culturally safe, and all that implies. It's not easy, it's a lifelong journey, you know, but we got to keep on. It's so important. Okay, we need more Māori doctors. And I have put the doctor one up there because I'm a doctor, and, you know, this is the important work that the Medical Council in New Zealand was doing to say, right, we need about 4 times as many Māori doctors, 4 times as many Māori doctors and 4 times as many Pacifica doctors as we currently have, to have equitable on a rights and population-based, let alone on a needs-based formula. So more Māori and Pacific health workers, more health workers reflective of the communities we serve. Okay, so you're pushing that from a Medical Council point of view, etc. And as I say, this is just another slide. We want all of our practitioners to be culturally competent, culturally capable, whether you're Māori or non-Māori, Indigenous or non-Indigenous. We need you to be dealing safely and appropriately with our people. So I won't go into detail of that, but this is a push really on our specialist training colleges in medicine to say, you will have these skills, you will assess these skills, you will value these skills, and our practitioners will come out with these skills. Work in progress, but you know. Now, I think might have been you, well, actually, I think you both referred to the KHA CARI guidelines, which we have in this part of the world. A few years ago, the KHA CARI took the initiative to say there are actually no Indigenous guidelines, and how can this be? And we agreed with them. And so on this side of the Tasman Sea, we worked on ours too. And I acknowledge Swatonia Palmer, who has steered and led this group, and others, some of whom are no longer with us, but who have worked so hard on our side of that. So like in Australia, we went around the country, a little bit easier because we got a smaller country, a little bit harder because we had less money. But we went around the country and talked to whānau, communities, practitioners about what their needs are, what their concerns were, etc. Now, again, these are some, perspectives from the voice of the people who came to us. Well, I don't know much about kidney disease. Want to know more. It's interesting. The news was dumped on me, and the number of times I see patients in my clinic who say, no, I don't know nothing. I was just told my kidneys weren't good. And, that's it. I do appreciate it's not easy in primary care to be conveying all the information that people should have, and we should be doing better. Anyway, yeah, tough. Very few talked about transplant. I know this is organ donation stuff, right? So no, I didn't hear much about it. Don't know much. Didn't get offered transplant. Didn't get talked about transplant. Assumptions were being made, right? It's hard out there. And so kind of reinforces, some of these kaupapa. Right. CKD guidelines. So similar, I think you will see to the recommendations, which I think were actually formatted much more nicely on your talk, Kelly, Janet, but much the same thing, right? Equity. We want equitable health. Enough of this, these gaps on the graphs. That's going to require participation in leadership and governance. And as Greg Phillips says, handing over the power, people. It's hard though, isn't it? Because then, governments come in and change it. Right. Cultural safe practitioners, navigators key. And that was just brilliant hearing the work that's going on over there. And the other things that you can see on there. And then some specifics around CKD screening. Actually, we need to be screening for CKD earlier in our Indigenous populations. None of this should come as a surprise, so that, people do have the chance to get the best care as they go along. Right. Transplant. So what are some actions we can take for transplant? Again, pretty high level stuff, but they kind of fall out and align with, NIKTT and the CKD guidelines that we have here. Equity lends to transplant scoring system and organ allocation. Merrin, you just reminded me today that we have relatively recently changed two things on our scoring system. One, well, the approach to BMI is more, I think, more flexible and understanding now, which, given that our Indigenous people are more affected by that, is a problem. Still variable, but is that. But the second thing that you wrote to me in an email is you've had a number of patients now who have been listed because we've now changed the scoring system from when you were first referred rather than later on into the pipeline, which cuts out some of the structural delays that our patients face.
Absolutely. I can't speak for last year's stats because I left halfway through the year, but for the 2022 year, 5 out of our 7 patients who were actually transplanted, not listed, but transplanted, were Māori, and 2 of those were preemptive transplants, so they had living donors, which can be a real challenge for many of our Māori patients because, when I did my master's research into barriers for transplant, many of our Māori patients told us that who would we ask, because all of our whānau are sick. If everyone in your whānau is sick, who can donate to you? So that's a challenge in itself. And if you can't get listed on the deceased donor waiting list until your specialist or the waitlist team determine that you are within 6 months of needing dialysis, it's, and the average wait time for a transplant when you're on the waiting list is 3 years, 4 years to get a transplant, then you're never going to get a preemptive transplant. So your only way to get a preemptive transplant if you're Māori, basically, because you can't be listed early when your EGFR is 15, you have to be symptomatic. If you haven't got a living donor, you're going to sit for a few years on dialysis, which is, I think, a national shame. Sorry, Curtis.
No, not at all. And so, but tweaking some of those systems, because they haven't been. There was no equity in any of those systems when they were brought in, 15 years ago, to be honest. And I acknowledge the work of you have to have some way of allocating organs, but they must be equitable. And I think we're understanding that more and more and need action on it. Anyway, so equity lends to transplant scoring systems and organ allocation. The upstream stuff about comorbidities, social determinants, and having whole healthy whānau so that, we're not all bloody wrecked by diabetes. And so, there are wider opportunities, and obesity. So there are wider opportunities to donate, as you say. And a whole bunch of other stuff. You really talked about decolonizing and not only going one step further than that and actually indigenizing our health system. And that is one of the shame or new challenges now that we don't have a specific body to do that, in my view. Right. Almost there, I think. You'll recognise this, Merrin.
So it's Charlie Tibuai.
To help engage whānau and hear voices, and promote transplant, being a donor amongst health services and whānau and consumers, was this way that Merrin, I think, Merrin, you were the main person, weren't you? Yeah. And sorry, I always
put 2 years.
What's that? Sorry?
It took 2 years, but we got there.
Well, it's been how many years since now? 3 and a bit. So,
Yeah.
Better get on and, roll that cope up a bit forward. I like showing this, Merrin, see, because that little bit that I've circled in there, we aims to raise the rate of Māori organ transplants. And you came in the BuzzFeed or whatever news feed above Donald Trump. Given what a loudmouth he is, you must be making some noise. Good noise, though.
Oh, gosh.
Well done, you. Sorry for getting political. Right. One of these other things is how can we overcome barriers? I just want to acknowledge Scott Crawford and the team. He's a nephrologist out Te Aotearoa, Hawke's Bay in the North Island of New Zealand, and he's really championed a one-day workup. Now, a lot of our Indigenous people, you know, haven't got time to be taken off work. Kids, babysitters, got to go, 300 miles in the snow on a good day in Canada. And so you got to be more responsive and flexible. So turn up one day, get all your tests done, your dental, your radiography, your heart scan, all of those things, so we can get you listed ASAP. Doesn't always work out that way, but by goodness, you know, they've got some really good results coming from a responsive, efficient, patient-centered health system, as opposed to, it's all too hard and it's all about how we want to schedule you. So I acknowledge Scott and the team out there who are doing that kind of work out there too. Almost there. Oh, yes, last 2 slides. So flexibility and BMI and an understanding and working hard with our dietitians and support workers, the fellow on the left. Now, after several years of not being able to get listed, I've managed to get him listed for a kidney transplant middle of last year. He hasn't got one yet, but, you know, hey, at least his ticket's in the lottery fairly and equitably. And the file on the right, the one on the left is one of my patients, and the one on the right is her health navigator. And she told me in clinic, I would not have come in here, I would not have had this experience had it not been for the navigator who's helping me get me to appointments and navigate the system and, you know, basically make sure that the patient's getting the information that she deserves. So a couple of little things from the clinic down the end of the hallway. The last little plug is we are doing for the Māori Doctors Association, actually it's in 2 days' time, but it is online, so you don't have to come from Canada and be, jet lagged. You go here, it's a cultural safety leadership symposium. I think there is an online or an app option and all of the rest, as far as I can tell. I'm just a participant, I'm not talking at it, but some of the really important people who have contributed to so much of this work over the years, Paparangi Reid, Elena Curtis, and David Tupene Leach, are at least 3 of my seniors who are leading and organising and going to be talking on this. And it's an Indigenous space like this one, right? It's not being run by Ministry of Health or anything like that. Important though those are as well. This is an Indigenous space. So no mai kia koutou katoa, ka haere mai nei ki tēnei kaupapa. Huri noa, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. I was just welcoming you all to that hui and acknowledging you all today. Thank you, Caroline. 38 slides done.
It was awesome. Thank you.
Might even be early. I don't know. Sorry, Craig, if I've gone over time, man, apologies.
No worries. I think it might be record time there for that many slides. So kudos to you. And just a little over time, but I don't think people mind staying a few extra minutes here just to you know, pose any questions. So I did say in the chat, if folks had any questions, you could put in the chat, or you could also raise your hand. So if there are any questions for Curtis, please raise your hand and ask away. Maren, I'll go over to you with your hand raised there.
Kia ora Curtis, whakatakatahau ki Ruru, whakatakatahau ki Te Tonga, ki mā kina ki Uta, ki mā taratara ki Tai. E hia kēnā te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, tihei Whatu Ora. I'm just acknowledging the work that Curtis has done. He's just an amazing nephrologist and human being, and working really hard in that health equity space and supporting our patients on their journey. So thank you so much, Curtis, for the knowledge and the support that you bring. I'd also just like to say one of the big challenges for me exiting the transplant coordination role is that here in Hawke's Bay, 80% of our patients on dialysis are Māori, so their challenge is getting onto the transplant waiting list in the first place. Many have to lose weight. We have a health system that has a shortage of specialist services. Within DHBs, it can vary across Aotearoa, New Zealand. If you're in a place that is well resourced, you might get your cardiology workup quite promptly. Here in Hawke's Bay, you might wait 12 to 18 months for an echocardiogram to get listed. Then it might take another 9 months for a cardiologist to even be able to review that echocardiogram before it's able to be sent out of the region. So there's rules about sending cardiology reports that haven't been signed off by a cardiologist outside of the region. So that can be a challenge, huge delays. It doesn't take so long. Well, actually, I was told just a week ago that someone waiting for a non-urgent pelvic ultrasound was going to have to wait 18 months for a non-urgent pelvic ultrasound. Now, that's unacceptable. So delays, Curtis talked about Scotty Crawford, who's up in Tauranga Bay of Plenty on the east coast of the North Island. A one-day workup for transplant recipients. I think to date they've only had about 3 people go through that program. It's a step in the right direction. It's what we should be doing. I mean, every place should have or 1 week. It doesn't have to be a 1 day, but a 1 week intensive. They do this for liver transplant in Auckland. People go up from anywhere in New Zealand to Auckland. They are housed there for a week. They have all of their tests done in a week, and then it's decided to list them or not, whatever the case may be. But they see all the specialists. Now, if we could do that sort of thing regionally, I know in Hawke's Bay we're a remote region. We used to have our specialists come up from Wellington to see our patients here, and that would be quite fast now. Our patients have to go down to them. It's 4 hours. The National Travel Assistance doesn't cover all of the petrol costs. Accommodation, often they'll have to stay over 2 days if they've got to see a urologist as well as a nephrologist or a neurologist, as in Curtis's. They've got to see several specialists, several appointments, and an anaesthetist as well. And they might not even get listed. And we had one of our patients who travelled down from Whatu Ora, which is 6 hours away, and he got down there, and the first thing, the specialist didn't even introduce themselves, so culturally totally unsafe, said, well, you're too fat, and that was it. My patient walked out the door. 6 hours of travelling to be told by a consultant at Wellington Hospital that they were too fat. Not even an introduction. So, it's there's a whole lot of learning that needs to happen, and the wraparound care needs to be culturally competent, but it also needs to come to the patients. But I really love, Kelly, you were talking about specialists going up to the centres. You talked about travelling up to Northern Territory to see patients, and that needs to happen in our area too. But all of the specialists together, working up a patient in a clinic setting and doing it in a week and just scheduling them in. What needs to happen to get this person listed? Teeth, cardiology, CT scan with contrast, have all the reports read, and have that specialist block of time put aside and get people listed. And the other barrier we're having is that when people are taken off the list, there might be an incidental finding, like a calcification on a breast, or someone's got an increase in their PSA, so their prostate has to get checked. They might have to wait 9 to 12 months for a urology check just to get those bladder scans and things done. So, all of those hold-ups, that's 9 months, 12 months off the list. And I've got a young female Māori patient who's in her early 40s. She's been on dialysis 8 years. Her father died on dialysis a few years ago, and we all loved him. And our patients are going on and off the list, and this poor girl's been off about 3 times from anything from skin infections to a breast lump that just needs a breast physician to have a look at it and make sure that it's not cancer. It's unacceptable. These delays are unacceptable. So that's just my little whinge about the health system in general, letting our patients down because there's no scope for them to see specialists in a timely manner. So thank you.
acknowledge all of that, Maren. And in our patients and in our stretched health system, moles turn into mountains. So, yeah.
Feeling,
Thank you. I was just taking that
feeling
link
myself, feeling myself get my blood rising a little bit here, just hearing the conversation going. And I know that the firsthand experience as well with the systems in Canada here as well are quite similar in many instances. And so just want to say ego sani miigwech to you, Curtis, and to you, Maren, as well, for sharing experiences from your homelands as well, because as you alluded to, there are a lot of similarities and alignments amongst our experiences of our relatives and our kin. And just seeing the chat here too, Janet, that you mentioned, acknowledging Shilpa Chasudasan's efforts in supporting action in Kari development guidelines. So just mentioning that as well, and just for everybody who's come on here too. So just wanted to say thank you to you, Curtis and Maren, for also sharing insights with us. I know we're a little over time, but I always think the work will get done even if we take that little bit of extra time to ensure that the messages that we're wanting to share get shared, and the connections that we're trying to make get connected. And so I appreciate the time that everybody has taken today to be here and to listen and to learn with open hearts and open minds and open hands. And that's one thing that I don't know if other people do that, but when we do ceremony and you hear songs, we're told to like stand kind of with your hands open, the bottom, and it's something I notice people do sometimes when I do that. So that's something I've been doing, listening to this too, is just it's a way to hold some of that knowledge that has been shared here today and carry it with us when we go forward. And so maybe I'll ask Caroline if you have a few closing words for us as well, and then we can pass it over to Elder Terry. She's still on the line here. I see her name there.
So thank you so much. This was so interesting, and in some ways I feel that we're really behind compared to, well, we are behind compared to what's happening in Australia and New Zealand. So I thank you for your presentations, and again, I hope this is just part of the journey as we move forward together, and definitely working towards getting us in person together somehow, so that we can visit with one another and get to know one another in person, and share more. I want to do one thing before I sign off, and that's Manuel, I just want to acknowledge, so Manuel had a baby last week or earlier this week, I don't know, but so yeah, the baby came early, and so all day today he has been juggling this, and then also the new baby is home. So I just wanted to acknowledge that Manuel did so much work on this. I mean, so much work, as you know, because he was corresponding with you guys. And just, I can't say enough about the work that he did, as well as Craig. Like, I mean, thank you, Craig. This has been a long day for you. You've been moderating since this morning, and I just want to thank and the CDTRP, the Canadian Donation and Transplantation Program, as well, and also to the tech support that we've had all day, has just been absolutely wonderful. And I had butterflies this morning. Oh my God, you guys, I didn't sleep last night, and so I am just feeling I'm just feeling a lot of gratitude towards all of you, and very humbled by the presentations. And I'm not a medical person, I'm an anthropologist, so I'm not good for a lot of things. But today I just learned so much, and I can't thank you enough. We will be asking you, we want to do some webinars moving forward cross-culturally, and doing that. I will say quickly, the University of Calgary just came out with an international visiting scholars program of which you can visit the University of Calgary for a week or 2 weeks. And there's funding. So I've already talked to them about that. So if anyone has a hankering to come to Canada, I think you should come in the wintertime.
It's -100.
When it's the -100. But I hope that we could start to have people coming on a regular basis using this fund. So I'm quite excited about the fund. And so I will turn it over to Terry Gardner, who is my dear, dear friend. And as I said, Terry shows up for her people every day. And just like you guys do, you know, and she is just the most amazing human being and dedicated. And I just can't say enough how much I love this woman. And we have a lot of fun together too. And so, Terry, I'll turn it over to you to close off what has been a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thank you so much, Caroline. It was such powerful presentations and the stories. I just really appreciate that. And I'm very proud of the work you're doing, and your doctor, I'm very proud of him. I just have one quick question before I go on. Your dialysis machine, do you have to actually go to the hospital, or do you have clinics in your communities? Anybody can answer that.
We have both, Terry. We have major
Okay.
hospitals, satellites, but we do home dialysis with training, and there's also community dialysis happening for community back on country.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay. Yeah, that's yeah, I just wanted to know, because there has to be a way we could do it up north. As our day goes on here, you know, as Indigenous people, we practice the 7 grandfather teachings, which is of love, respect, and truth, honesty, courage, wisdom, humility, and relationships, the love we carry for each other. I'll pray in my language for all of us, so we can go on with our journeys. As we go on to our journeys, our Creator to give us strength, and to give Caroline strength to the important work she's doing, so our people don't have to suffer as much. I'm going to speak in my language. I'm going to pray in my language, the Creator to help us, which is Cree, or Northern Mitiv. Mantum nan we tihinana nos kagi sigak katipskakuma katigosumuya piahtak tamam tonistama instigon na koesta patistaya inishun tasitos katuya kakiogi goitega gwimio paik ugimino tiwa hiokamatuya tikamama puista wa koma riska sikaswatik igohi wistawa matitaga kuipingitik tamama witi hituya ksisan matasohkan kakiogi goi mantum nan kakio panawim nan sitos kawana na kan gimina kagiut nistik tanigani staga ko egunimina ko esus tagano tapatistatik tasoksitik kai ko esta mantonista kakio tawiti hituya taasimsna naginego iwahon si ko matemaskikia ka haut nahko igwigak tamagistik egunimina mista muatanik an gimina nanto kawigi temagigwi mitik egunimina mantuik temagi matma chikotwai sinwa. Hi. Thank you for listening to me.
Gosani, Terry, thank you for your prayers and for sending us off back to our home fires in a good way.